Hey everybody! So, week 3 in the books, and Jackets took a huge freaking dub this weekend. So I am, really excited. Obviously, looking for our future, and I mentioned this that we need to do a return to the video looking at our future opponents because quite a lot's happened. I in week 1 I made a video where I looked ahead at Georgia Tech's opponents that are coming up, and I thought it was an interesting thing to do. And a couple weeks later now, there's a lot happened. Obviously, a lot of games have happened, and I think it'd be interesting to take a look. So, well, what's also what might be interesting too is to kind of take a look at what teams we have faced already, and kind of see what they've been up to, which so far is only Colorado. I'm not going to bother keeping up with Gardner Webb. But Colorado, man, they're down bad. They had a game against Delaware week 2, and then, they put in Ryan Staub, their third-string quarterback, so they freaking go from Salter, which I didn't – I think, benching Salter was a knee-jerk kind of deal. I don't think that they should have benched him quite yet. I mean, he got one game against Georgia Tech, and we're pretty good. Like, we just beat Clemson. Like, don't you think that was a bit knee-jerk reaction? Anyway, they're like heaping praise upon Ryan Staub. He's terrible. They go, he throws all over Delaware. It's like whoop-de-doo, but then he goes to freaking face a real team, Houston, and they lose. So Colorado's really bad. Staub, not the answer. Really, a quarterback is not your problem. A quarterback is the least of Colorado's problems. And benching Salter was just a really knee-jerk thing. So, I don't know. It's a complete disaster there. We try to tell these people that would be the case, but they don't want to listen. So, moving on, we obviously beat Clemson this week. They had, struggled against Troy last week, but a lot of people talking about how Clemson, was not what they were built up to be. I certainly thought that they were going to be a lot better than they wound up being, and they are a bit of a disappointment as far as ACC contenders is what they were supposed to be. But, we got the win over them, so hey, I'm stoked on that. So from here on, I hope Clemson does really well, so that's a quality win. And I was looking at their schedule. Like they'll win a good amount of games. Like they're not going to be they'll probably go like 8-4 or something. They're not a horrible team, but they're definitely the best ACC team we're going to face because looking ahead, man, some of these ACC teams are looking rough. So we got Temple this next week. They got like blown out by Oklahoma or something. Not too worried about talking about them. Then we had an interesting game Thursday night. So Wake Forest and NC State played each other, and we played both of these teams. NC State won 34-24, going 3-0 on the season. So NC State has looked actually not bad. I've watched both of their good games. I think they played, they played 2 Power 5 opponents, and then they played, they played like East Carolina. And stuff, and Virginia, and now Wake Forest, and they don't look bad. They're 3-0. They look pretty decent. They definitely look like they could be either the first or second best team in the ACC that we have left to play. So watch out for NC State. They were solid, and Wake Forest honestly put up a much better fight than I expected them to. They looked more competent on offense, not in the second half. The second half was of this game was really bad for Wake Forest. They went, their offense completely just sputtered out. It was a really competitive game for a half, and it was kind of a lot of points scored. And Wake Forest is still a disaster. They had like 1 million penalties in this game, and it was a mess. So, I'm not scared of Wake Forest really at all. They're bad. Like after Temple, we do play Wake Forest at Wake Forest, but I don't think it's going to be a problem. I think we'll go up in there and beat them. I think we're way better than Wake Forest. So That is if we play to our best ability, of course, right? So Wake Forest, nothing really crazy about them. They put up a better fight than I thought, but in the end, they still are a very, very flawed team, very bad team, really. NC State, though, I'm definitely going to keep an eye on them. I'm definitely interested to see what they look like. So I'm just going to go here next to, well, the next team we play is Virginia Tech. And look, man, we have Temple next week, then Wake Forest, then a bye week, then Virginia Tech. We ought to kill Virginia Tech. Everybody knows what happened with Virginia Tech. Obviously, they get blown out by Old Dominion 45-26 at home. Virginia Tech has no home field advantage. They fired their coach. They have an awful team. Not only did they fire their coach, but every player can – it hasn't even been 4 games. So every player can redshirt. Every player can immediately enter the transfer portal. Virginia Tech's in trouble, dude. This is bad, man. This is so bad. I am so disappointed in them. They had potential under Brent Pry and did not live up to it. A couple years ago, like towards the end of the year, they looked good, and a bunch of people hyped them up, and they were, darlings of the offseason and whatnot, and they have been a complete letdown. I saw them, that could be a formidable rival. We ought to steamroll them. I don't care what the situation is, man. This is freaking pathetic at Virginia Tech. They are down really, really bad. Really bad. So we should easily beat them. Moving on, I believe after that we have Duke. And, geez, they're not looking so hot themselves. So they go on the road and lose to Tulane, 27-34. It was a good game, but, dude, they stole Tulane's quarterback, Darian Mensah, from Tulane last year in the offseason, and then go on the road and lose to him, dude. That's crazy, man. I don't know has that even happened before, where a Power 5 team steals a quarterback from a Group of 5 team and then goes and loses to him? That's pretty wild, and that's a bad sign for Duke. Duke is so much more disappointing than I thought they would be. I am definitely, not a freaking buyer in Duke anymore. I thought that, I had them winning 8 or 9 games this year. That's not happening. And when we play them, I'm expecting a win. We beat Duke when we own them. We beat them even when they're bad. I mean, even when we're bad, in the Jeff Collins years. We only lost to Duke once in the Jeff Collins years. So we just completely own Duke. I'm not scared of Duke whatsoever. And I picked us to lose to them, if you can believe it, in the offseason. We clearly look like a much, much better team than Duke. So I'm definitely changing that to a win. Guys, this is the next 4 games. Temple, Wake Forest, Virginia Tech, Duke. Should all be wins. Okay, then we get to Syracuse. Well, should we completely write off Syracuse? There's not much to talk about, first of all, from them this week. They beat Colgate. That's toothpaste, I'm pretty sure. 66-24, so whoop-de-doo. I didn't make this video last week, so obviously I missed, the game where they had to take UConn into overtime. UConn, you're having to take into overtime to beat them? Are you kidding me? So what the deal is with Syracuse, I don't know. We'll have to see. We'll have to see what they keep playing. Looking ahead, I'm going to look at their schedule here. They have Clemson this week. I expect that to be a bloodbath. Then they have Duke. So, their game against Duke will be interesting to see. I still think the jury might be. I mean, they could be an okay team. They could be not complete garbage, but who knows? I don't know. These teams are not looking good though in the ACC. Next, we have NC State. I talked about them already. Probably the best looking team on our, the best looking ACC team on our schedule. Boston College goes on the road and loses to Stanford, 30-20. Now, I did not actually see this game. I need to review the footage, but I did watch their game last week against Michigan State. And I thought their quarterback looked good, and I thought they had a pretty good showing against Michigan State, who just pulled out in the end. But I didn't think they looked that bad. Now they're not looking so hot. So what I thought might be maybe the second best team, because if you're going down this list of teams that we got coming up, none of them looked good this week except for NC State. Boston College losing to Stanford, Stanford's an awful team. So to lose to them, pretty unacceptable. I'm going to give them a little bit of a benefit of the doubt, though, because, Stanford, they had to go to Stanford. That's all the way across the entire country. So I get it. They had to go to Stanford. Maybe you give them a little grace for that. I don't know, though. I really don't know what to think of Boston College. I'm going to see if they can bounce back from that, but they're 1-2 now. They've had to go on the road twice. They got, Cal coming up. That's probably going to be a loss. Cal's looking actually pretty good. They got Pittsburgh and Clemson coming up. So we'll see how they perform against those two. Our last game is Pittsburgh. They, of course, lose the backyard brawl in overtime to West Virginia, which is the same West Virginia team that lost to Ohio last week. Ohio, and that's it. So, West Virginia, not good. Not good that you lose to the backyard brawl. They've won the backyard brawl for the past few years in a row, and it's I don't know. I thought Pitt would be better than that. I don't know. I guess blowing out, random FCS teams doesn't mean you're actually good. Once they face any slight bit of competition, they completely fold. So who knows? It's the only game we've seen them play. So I don't know. I'm gonna definitely keep an eye on these teams. Look, these teams all look terrible. Honestly, even NC State, the best team, they're undefeated. They still don't look that good. They still are not that impressive. We're still better than them. So if we play to our best ability, we ought to beat all these teams. That's my concern, is that we don't play to our ability and be consistent every week. I said this after the Clemson game. I'll say it 100 times. Playing week to week and getting up for these games against crappy ACC competition is going to be harder than winning that one game. And look, we used to be the crappy ACC competition. So we should, in my opinion, we should still be hungry to win and go out and improve. We're not Clemson that just runs through the ACC every year. We've yet to do that. We should this year, though. This is an extremely manageable schedule by what's appeared, to be the case so far this year. These teams are looking rough. A lot worse than I had thought at the beginning of the year. So we'll continue to keep an eye on these guys. I always, I like watching our opponents and seeing how they do. So let me know what y'all think, who you think looks the best on our schedule, who you're worried about, who you think will destroy. And let me know. Anyway, go Jackets. I'll see you guys next time.